And today we have Ivan Stupak in our studio, a former employee of the Security Service of Ukraine and a military expert. Greetings, Mr. Stupak.
Good day. Glad to be with you.
Okay, thank you. It's a pleasure to see you in our studio again. And to start with, we've been talking a lot about Syria previously, and let's talk about Ukraine today and about Russian territorial gains in Ukraine. Russia is taking big territorial advances over the front in Ukraine and also suffers huge losses in personnel, rising up and stacking with each month. We are talking about war fatigue in Ukraine, and the Western media are talking about war fatigue in Ukraine. Let's talk how long can Russia sustain such losses to advance further?
Oh, it's a tricky question. Nobody knows. For sure, nobody knows because Russian role in advance is lasting for about 14 months without any stops. And nobody knows, and nobody could even foresee for how long it will take in the future. Maybe for 2 months long, or maybe 4 months. Nobody knows. So as now we have role in advance on different directions, and if we will start talking about particular directions, so I could highlight only two directions, for example the city of Pokrovsk and the city of Kurakhova. And according to the statistic for the last month, for November, on Kurakhova region we've got about 1,400 combat clashes, and on the Pokrovsk direction is about 1,200 combat clashes. So it's incredibly high numbers. And on other directions, about 200, 300, much less numbers. So I could see from here, from my position, that Russian General Staff has a great aim to capture these two cities as fast as it possible without taking into account casualties. I mean casualties in manpower, in heavy equipment, in funds. I mean money. No, nobody cares about it.
And we've been talking a lot about war fatigue in Russia, and that probably high casualties will make some social boom and social disaster that will make people protest against the war. It doesn't happen. Probably the world is waiting right now for February. For February, when the president-elect, or January, when the president-elect of the United States will come into power, Donald Trump. Maybe then the circumstances for Russian advance will be slightly or majorly different for them, and they are trying to make as much gains with Russian corpses as possible right now. What do you think about that?
I don't believe, and I could explain why. Because I don't expect that, particularly in January, after January the 20th, Putin will stop his role in advance. No, I think maybe from my internal feelings, maybe the peace process will start only since the March, because Mr. Trump, he definitely needs to form his team to make some to find solutions, to make some programs, to make a vision on different problems, including internal problems. I mean migration in the United States. I mean problems connected with China, with sanctions against China, against Iran, about relationship with NATO, and then only the issue on Ukraine. So I do expect that something will happen only after the March 2025. And for President Putin, there is two possible options of what he can do. From one side, from one hand, exactly, the economical problems in Russia, they're there rise in the number of problems in economic. They are for last months they rise it significantly, and lots of economic experts highlight these problems with inflation, with lack of manpower or on the ground, and the Putin do understand this problem. And from other hand, the Putin army has some gains on the battlefield, and it's not use for him to stop army for right now, but he has to choose what are the options: to continue rolling advance or to destroy Russian economy. So I think it's a very tricky question for him.
Well, I see that you believe that the spring of 2025 will be some kind of a decisive time, but let's think about why the Western media are so focused on Ukraine and Ukraine's exhaustion and losses, and not really much talking about Russian ones. Maybe because the statistics in Russia are not easily accepted.
Yeah, for sure, 100%. And I would like to explain. Look, Ukraine tries to be more open to Western world and would like to share some information. Okay, not 100% of information, but Ukraine is very welcome. Welcomes lots of foreign journalists, mass media to come into Ukraine to make public opinion surveys, to talk to people, to talk to soldiers on the battlefield, and to form its own picture of what is going on in Ukraine. Also, we are not trying to classify our statistic on in different spheres, in economy, in social process, in military and national security issues. Some information is classified, but in Soviet Union, not Soviet Union, in Russian Federation, there are lots of information is classified. I mean, custom issues, social issues, economical, national security, military, politic issues, and everyone, even foreign journalists, if everyone would like to come to Russia and to start talking to people, he risks to be captured by Russian law enforcement officers and to be thrown into the jail, to stay behind the bars. Just to see the latest example, Evan Gershkovich from Wall Street Journal, he was swapped during the last exchange of prisoners. So he was just a journalist, he wasn't a spy. So that is why there's so a lot of restrictions and a lot of obstacles to get a lot of information from Russian Federation. It's much more easier to obtain such information from Ukraine.
Indeed. And speaking of prisons, and the last question will be, do you see how strongly will the Russian influence in the world stagger after Syrian rebels taking over the Assad regime? We've seen them releasing prisoners of one of the worst prisons in Syria today, with horrible atrocities and human rights abuse. And it has been happening for 50 years in a row in Syria. I mean, the pro-Russian regime, we see that with Ukrainian prisoners of war and what the Syrian Assad regime forces were doing to their own people in Syria. How much this victory of rebels, the anti-Russian movement, weaken Russia in the international stage?
Okay, from my side, I could state that Russia lost its influence over Middle East with no doubts. That lots of countries in this region could see, the Putin, the leader, he is weak, his army weak, he is not able to ensure security for friendly regimes, and nobody would like to make a connection with Putin. Putin also lost his influence on Mediterranean Sea, on Africa, because he is one step away from losing its military base in Khmimim and navy port in how it's called. I forgot this name. If you help me, I will be very appreciated. Okay, Okay, doesn't matter. And one more. Everyone could see that Russia stuck in Ukraine, and Russia is not able to do nothing with friendly regimes and only focused on Ukrainian issue.
And while we were talking, I remembered a particular issue that Israel was like saying that we will not support Ukraine militarily because we have a deep interconnection with Russian forces in Syria, a region that threatened Israel. And right now, when Russia is in Syria no more, we can expect some changes in our bilateral relations with Israel in the future. Probably not some major changes, but a political one. And we will start talking about the cooperation between Israel and Ukraine, security cooperation once again. I believe that.
I do agree with you, but I think it will need some time for Israel to set some connections with a new opposition in Syria when they will start some election or they will appoint some official persons on different positions, and Israel will set the connections, and maybe 5 or 6 months from now, we could start discussing with Israel some security guarantees or security supplies to Ukraine from Israel. I'm not talking about lots of munition, about hundreds and thousands of shells or combat jets, but maybe some anti-aircraft systems, maybe different infantry fighting vehicles, maybe, but it takes time, so we have to wait.
Maybe even small arms that Ukrainian brigades need so much. The Ukrainian president said that brigades are not completely stacked with weapons, with small arms even for the advances and defending Ukraine. Well, very much thank you, Mr. Stupak.
Thank
That was a great interview, and we hope to see you again. I had a real pleasure interviewing you today, and this insight on Israel, it was really random. Thank you very much, and see you soon again.
Bye bye.
Goodbye.